We lived on the edge of the northern bush and were frequently visited by natives of that wilderness. Porcupines, skunks, wolves, foxes, bear, weasels, all came to visit, and many exacted tribute. The skunks, foxes, and weasels made it virtually impossible to raise chickens, and we stopped trying. We had 4 gardens, and every year the raccoons and bears would wreak havoc with the corn. The gardens were critical to us as a food source since we had very little income, so we had arranged a precarious truce with our wild neighbors. As long as the animals didn't do too much damage, we could live with their raids. I planted 3 times the corn we needed, twice the potatoes, and 4 times the tomatoes, and any surplus the animals didn't get we gave to friends. One year this process resulted in our having nearly 1,400 pounds of tomatoes. But there were rogues, some that took too much, some that were violent. The worst of these were the bears. Most of them were mellow, some less so, and when they became too aggressive, I would shoot a high-powered rifle near them and scare them off. This worked for a long time, but some of them became accustomed to the crack of the rifle and didn't run. They would ignore yelling or banging of pans, but even then we were hesitant to go to the next phase, destroying the bear. By law, we weren't allowed to if they destroyed property or threatened us, but I had a rule that if they didn't actually attack one of the sled dogs, frequently they ate with the dogs and didn't bother them, or a person, I would not shoot them. Indeed, in all my years of running dogs, I had to shoot only 1 bear. Do you agree with the rule about killing bears? But one particular bear was becoming a problem. It had been in the garden several times, and although it ran when I fired warning shots, it seemed hesitant. I decided it would be good to watch it. But when the problem bear came back, I wasn't there. I was in the kitchen, and my wife was working in the garden. Quincy, as always, was by her side, and she was on her hands and knees, weeding, when she heard a strange woofing sound nearby and looked up to see the problem bear coming at her. There was no warning, no stance, no threat. It was down and moving toward her. We had procedures. Do not make eye contact, get up, back away, and she did all these things. They did not work. It kept coming and was clearly going to attack, was attacking, when Quincy went for the bear like a fur-covered bullet. It was a draw as to who was more astonished, the bear or my wife. Quincy launched himself from the ground, 4-inch legs pumping, and caught the bear in the center of its chest. He grabbed a mouthful of fur and hung on, clinging like a burr. Surprised, the bear stopped and tried to bite Quincy, but the dog was in too close. The bear started scrapping with its front paws, and my wife chose that moment to use all the good luck from the rest of her life. She rushed in, grabbed Quincy, pulled him off the bear, and ran for the house. For some reason, shock perhaps, the bear did not follow her, and Quincy miraculously was not injured. Later at the vet's, we couldn't find a scratch on him nor any internal injuries. Quincy just passed on last year at the ripe old age. He was well on when we got him in Alaska, of 18 or 20 years, as near as the doctor could figure. At the end, he was blind and close to deaf, but he could still smell, and to his last days he would stick his nose to the vent and tell us when we were coming up on the Dairy Queen, and he still would have jumped through the window if he had gotten a chance. He should have been named White Fang. Should Gary Paulson have kept the Siberian Husky instead of trading it for Quincy? Pause the video and think about that for a moment. For your written response today, please make a list of all the things you can think of that the author would need to take on the race. Remember, it takes several days in the cold and snow.